welcome to ComplyPlus Presents. Another episode today. I've got Richard with me as usual. How's your
Hello,
week been,
everyone.
Richard?
Been a busy week,
Yeah.
but now I'm getting used to this now. So Friday mornings, I'd actually miss it if we didn't have to do it. So I never thought I'd say this, but I'm enjoying doing this. So how everyone has been okay,
Yeah. And you had a day at UCL yesterday?
Yeah. So I'm doing guest lecturing at UCL, and they've got a Master of Public Administration course that they're doing. So it's quite exciting. The second one that I've done this year, and there's a lot going on out there in different parts of the world. But also you get to compare with what we do here in England and in the UK in general, and it's quite exciting times. I think there's a lot of opportunities rather to actually improve how we do things, and even for us as a business as well, to learn what's going on out there, and some of these ideas we can incorporate them into how we're using technology as far as revolutionizing. I know it's a word that is used quite a lot.
Slightly cliche.
It's a cliche, but
it's true. That's what
it's happening. Yeah. That's what's happening right now, because you can completely transform services with technology.
Yeah, and I think obviously the international crowd that are there at UCL as well, you get different ideas from different countries as well.
Certainly. It's quite exciting times,
Okay, so just a quick recap on last week, something we haven't been doing in the episode so far, but we just wanted to recap obviously on last week's episode where we looked at Train the Trainer and tried to define what Train the Trainer is, what options are out there, what different models are there, how organisations can be ready. We talked about readiness a little bit, but we were going to go into more detail in that in future episodes. And obviously why sort of training needs analysis and training matrices are important and why they matter. And hopefully we gave people some ideas about how they go about it. Obviously, one thing we promised from the last episode was we will give all of the listeners and people that come to our website and support the podcast, we will be given some templates. We've also got some webinars in the pipeline as we go into spring, particularly in March and April. So looking forward to running those or being part of those. Richard will be one of the speakers, but we've got some other people lined up as well. So hopefully, last week's episode was useful in some ways. And don't worry about the giveaways. They will be on their way soon. What will you learn today or hope? What will the takeaways be from today? We're going to look at how you can conduct an effective training needs analysis, dive a bit deeper into that and look at implementation, because quite often, however you consume your content, sometimes it's all ideas, and this would be nice, but sometimes you actually need that support in implementation and then monitoring the success of implementation as well and conducting things properly. So hopefully we can go through that. And we're also going to look at how you build a training matrix that meets regulatory requirements and standards, because one of the things that we discussed on another episode is a lot of people come to us, whether it's a big service or small service within health and social care or Ofsted regulated services, they don't really know maybe what training they need. They don't know how to map it to the organisational requirements and so on.
Yeah.
And we're going to touch on that a little bit more today. So, best place to start, understanding a training needs analysis. What is the definition of a training needs analysis?
So the simplest way to define it is that it's a systematic process that you use to understand the needs, training needs of the business, and obviously the people that you are training within the business. So it's not a standalone thing that you just tick boxes. You have to think of it in the framework of the organizational needs. So there's something called organizational needs analysis, which is looking at the business goals, and the gaps that may stop a business from achieving its goals. So because we work with most regulated, we work with organizations that are highly regulated. So if you are regulated by the Care Quality Commission, for example, they have regulations, they have legislation that they expect to be in place within the organization. So how do you do that? You do the gap analysis to say, look, what are the risks to service users? What are the risks to staff? What are the things that you need to deliver safe, effective services that are responsive to people's needs and all that? So that's part of the gap analysis. Then it determines then to say, look, which training is required by statute, so your statutory training, then you list everything that needs to be done by law.
By law.
Then which training is mandatory, those training courses that are going to help you meet the regulatory requirements, right? For example, statutory is health and safety training, fire safety, all those are, related to the Health and Safety at Work Act
So
in
then
the
law,
UK.
yeah.
So you have to do them.
Yeah.
And any organization that is employing people has to do those.
Yeah.
But also things like GDPR, so whether you're calling it information governance or GDPR or Code of Good Principles, you have to do some sort of training to meet the requirements of the law. But then something like resuscitation, for example, it's still part of the statutory requirements under the Health and Safety at Work Act. But people are going to be doing that at different levels. So you do an analysis now to say, look, who are the people in the organization that we have, right? And what training do they need to deliver on their responsibilities? Because people have different responsibilities. So, yeah, that's the crucial distinction there to say, look, you can't talk about training needs analysis without looking at the organizational needs analysis. Training needs analysis focuses more on the gaps that may be there that may stop you achieving your organizational goals, right? And so some of the benefits of doing a training needs analysis that obviously you comply, right? But also safety is important in the sectors that we work with. People have more confidence, it boosts their morale. They're unlikely to make errors, like drug errors and things like that. And also, litigation, health and social care. Now, there's such high levels of litigation. It's really important that organizations actually meet the requirements, regulatory requirements, to stop that.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, quite a thorough definition there.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's useful. So, why, I know you've touched on some points, but why is it essential to conduct a training needs analysis?
Yeah, look, as an organization, you can deliver training and not know whether it's having any impact at all or not, right?
Yeah.
And you have a lot of examples where people come to you not knowing what they're supposed to be doing. So
Yeah,
what training?
exactly,
What
yeah.
training do we need?
Yeah.
Right. So if you don't even know what training you need, even if I gave you a list, you go on the internet and somebody's saying this is the list of the training you need. What is it based on?
Yeah, what's the source? Is
Exactly.
it related to what you're
So
actually doing?
you need
or
to
providing?
localize. You can use that as part of your research to say, okay, what are the training courses that are required to meet Ofsted requirements, for example?
Yeah, and loads of articles will come up, yeah.
Yes, it doesn't mean that they are of any substance.
No.
You then need to go, you can use that as a guide. You can talk to commissioners as well, but it's you actually looking at the needs within the organization. And then even if you get a list somewhere, how is it going to be applied in your organization? What skills do people have already? What training and education do they have already? Experience they have, your management systems. So it's really crucial to be able to calculate that return on investment, to be able to know what needs to be done, but also ensuring that the training you're providing is aligned to the business goals, right? That's the step where many people that are ticking boxes miss, because if you're just ticking boxes, something is going to give at some point.
Yeah.
You can go for 2, 3, 4, 5 years without any problems at all, just ticking boxes. But actually, if you don't localize by doing a proper needs analysis, you are going to have problems at some point. Either your
Something's
service
gonna
users are
happen,
going to suffer, staff morale, sickness levels, performance, all sorts of issues will come up at
Incidents,
some
yeah,
point. Yeah.
Okay. So, what's the link between a training needs analysis and an organizational needs analysis? Because obviously there is a distinction, yeah.
Exactly. So training needs analysis is looking at workforce needs.
Workforce needs, yeah.
Then organizational needs analysis is looking at the organization as a whole to say, look, what are our goals and where are the gaps that may stop us achieving our goals? That's the simplest distinction between the two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, how do you align training needs analysis with business goals then? Obviously, every organisation has its goals. There's training that needs to be done, as we've already touched on, whether it's statutory by law or mandatory. But yeah, how would you align that with business goals? Because I imagine some people will struggle with that.
Yeah, definitely. Again, you're saying, look, why are we here as a business? why do we exist, right? If our role is to serve a part of the population by providing a service in social care or early years provision, then if somebody's going to be dropping their child at a nursery, for example, 3, 4 years old, what are they expecting? They're expecting the child to have the care that they need. They're going to be fed. They're going to be looked after. They're going to be participating in stimulating activities. So there's expectations. People have expectations. But even when you register the business, the regulatory body is going to assess your business to see whether you are fit to run that service as an individual or as a group of people. Have you done all your risk assessments? Do you have policies and procedures in place? All those things matter. But if you don't train people, yes, you can have all the policies in the world, but there will still be gaps somewhere. So it's finding those gaps and seeing how you link with the needs of the people and the needs of the business. Because if you have policies and procedures, and you say to people when they join you during induction, read the policies and procedures, like what is commonly done in the sectors we serve. There are folders on the shelf, and people are required to sit for a day or two reading through the policies and procedures. How much are you going to retain of that information? That's why you need training as part of the induction. You also need onboarding training. You also need supervision. You are continuously assessing risks and aligning your training efforts to the business goals, right? If there's an incident, for example, or an accident, you can use that as a learning opportunity to deliver additional training, refine the processes, change your policies and procedures, update them so that you minimize that risk. You can never completely get rid of risks, but what you're doing is constantly risk assessing and updating your training plan depending on the needs of the business and the needs of the service users, but also your staffing requirements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So another sort of model that is thrown around, abbreviation, whatever you want to call it, it's the KSA model. And when is training the right solution? So maybe if you just give everyone a bit of an understanding what the KSA model is, what it stands for, how does it address the question of when is training the right solution?
Yeah. When you do your gap analysis, in most cases, there'll be issues around knowledge. Do people know what is expected of them? Do people know what they're supposed to be doing? They know how to do it, right? Then there's an issue around skills, like clinical skills, for example. There's a vast difference. During COVID, some of our online courses were being taken by local authorities.
Yes, there was a surge.
So we developed clinical observations courses and verification of death courses for nurses. So nurses have gone to university and spent 3 years learning to become a nurse. And then they've done placements, they've been signed off, they've done clinical skills workshops. So we wrote these courses for experienced nurses. But during COVID, these courses are now being done by care workers. And the rush during the time, I remember, we were asking some of the local authorities, no, but we wrote these courses for nurses. Do you want us to adapt them? But they didn't have time to wait for you to adapt those courses.
No.
And I felt quite guilty actually to say, hang on, we can't be using these courses for people that have no experience at all. And we ended up having to put additional information to
I
support.
remember we did rewrite a lot of those courses.
Exactly.
Didn't we? Yeah.
Exactly. So skills are crucial. That depends on where the person is coming from as well. What experience do they have? What education do they have? Previous training they've had? Then the most crucial part is attitude. Because obviously knowledge and skills, you can train people around that, right? Attitude is crucial. It can still, training needs analysis can actually be a perfect solution where there's an attitude issue because it gives you a chance to realign with the organizational mission, the vision, the values. So you then look at the typical user journey. For example, if we're looking after disabled people in the community, right? They're vulnerable people. And they need support some of them may need support in every aspect of their life, mental health problems, autism, things like that, right? So you need people that have the right attitude to work in the care sector. You need people that have the right attitude to work in
That's
areas.
paramount, isn't it? Yeah.
It's paramount. And but you can actually assess to see where people are.
Yeah.
You can assess to see where this business is. Then you work on those gaps now to say, how do we close those gaps by aligning training needs together with the organizational needs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So conducting a training needs analysis, what's the 4-step training needs analysis process?
Yeah. So you identify the business goals. So
Business
you hope
goals.
that everyone knows what their business goals are.
Yeah,
Right.
because
So
without that,
why is that important?
bit
So
difficult.
what are your objectives as a business? If you've got different departments, what are those departments doing? Right. Because it has to be tailored to that local level. And then you have to look at the compliance and regulatory requirements. What legislation do we need to meet? What regulations do we
Yeah.
need to meet? And then the operational challenges as well, to say where are we facing challenges, be it performance, mistakes being done, and opportunities to sort of say, look, how do we turn those things around? It's almost like doing a SWOT analysis in a way, right? But it's an internal one where you're looking to see where your strengths are as a business and where the issues are to address them. Then the second step is to gather the data, right? I remember when I worked in the NHS, I was working in research at the time. Part of what we were doing was just to monitor what's going on. You go to the A&E department, for example, busy department, and you just sit and you're watching what people are doing and you're recording what people are doing, right? We're looking at a particular patient group that was at risk, but it was so important to understand how people were working so that you can then redesign how people can work better in the end. So you gather information, you can do questionnaires, you can do surveys, anonymous ideally. You can use SurveyMonkey or other
Yeah, there's
tools
a lot of tools
that
out
you
there
can
now,
use, and you can do leadership and management interviews as well. Ask leaders and managers to sort of say, look, what are their organizational priorities? Where are they facing issues? Where do they need to improve? You can do audits. You can do focus groups with groups of workers to understand these particular challenges that they have in that particular area. Then additional sources, performance appraisals as well, depending on how big the organization is and how strong their HR system is. Workplace observations, which is what I was talking about, you're observing people in action. You also look at processes and document reviews. In healthcare, particularly, those are really crucial. Reviewing care plans. I used to do audits as part of one of my jobs in the NHS, where you're doing audits for venous thromboembolisms. To look at how well people are doing. When they self audit, they're getting 96, 98, 100%. Then you come and do a 10-minute audit, they're barely
Not even
doing
meeting the threshold,
50%, right?
Yeah.
So again, all those things are really crucial.
Marking your own homework. Never healthy,
Exactly.
yeah.
Then the third part now is the assessing training solutions. So what kind of solutions do you have right now? Face-to-face training, e-learning, blended learning, lunch and learn, all the different types of solutions that you currently have. Then the hard versus the soft costs of training, right? Because of course there's a cost. People always worry about paying money, right? And many organizations do not like paying external people. They try to do it themselves internally. But is it effective? Do you need a balance of both to ensure that there's a good mix there? So you need to evaluate internal and external training. Some training is better done by external providers. Some training is
Get
better
more out
done
of it, but
internally,
sometimes-
especially when you're assessing people on the job. Because remember, most of the health and social care, childcare, it used to be vocations. People used to do it as vocational work, right? They didn't need to have degrees. They didn't even need to have qualifications sometimes. So it's really crucial to look at that. Then once you've done the first 3 steps, then you're now looking at developing a training plan. So you're structuring the training based on the gaps that you have identified, the needs that you have identified, to say how are we going to close those gaps. So really crucial part, because you need to ensure that the objectives of that training, what are the learning outcomes of the training, right? So the aims obviously is to align with the organizational goals. The objectives, you're now looking at things that you're going to do to deliver that training effectively. The outcomes, you're now saying, look, once we train the people, this is what they'll be able to do after the training. But obviously, you need to then think about refresher intervals. We can talk about that as part of the training matrix. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense. So, yeah. Moving on to the next point, we're looking at building an effective training matrix. So again, probably best to start with a quick definition. What is a training matrix? Because it sounds quite fancy.
Yeah. and it throws people off. I was at a conference towards Christmas last year. Very highly accomplished business leaders. One of them came over to me and said, "Well, I've done very well, but they were a bit concerned that I didn't have a training matrix. What is it actually?" And I thought that, wow, that's, I'm not shocked because we've seen it all.
We've seen examples of
right?
this, yeah.
But because obviously as a business, if we are not investing in these areas, we won't even know what we're not doing well sometimes until somebody else comes in. Yeah. So training matrix, it's a tool, systematic way to track compliance. Are you complying with the regulatory requirements, legislative requirements? But also you're tracking competencies. What competencies do people need based on the needs analysis that you have done, and learning progress. So it's a nice visual dashboard, which used to be on spreadsheets. Still, many people still use spreadsheets, but even more people will have a folder somewhere that lists all the training that they're supposed to be doing, who is supposed to be doing it, what level are they supposed to be doing it, at what intervals do they do the refresher. So that's what it's for. You're tracking the training that you are delivering and ensuring that it's meeting the legislative and regulatory requirements, and you're covering the competencies that people need, and you're checking their learning progress as well. I mean, of course, there are now digital solutions like what we did with ComplyPlus, and other organizations offer similar systems. But most of the organizations will do it manually using some sort of folder,
Microsoft tool,
or PowerPoint. Or Excel. They'll be using Excel. Yeah.
So I think you've already touched on some of these points, but why is it essential to have one?
Well, you have to comply with regulations.
Yeah.
Right.
Hopefully everyone got that one.
Yeah. So if there is an incident or accident, the first thing regulators or investigators look at is, did you train your people? And if you don't have the evidence that you've trained them, then it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you're going to say. If you can't show the evidence that you have assessed your needs, you have delivered the training, you've met the competency requirements, then you haven't done it. The other thing also is workforce readiness. We always say to people, whether you're regulated by Ofsted or CQC, or whether you just need to meet health and safety executive requirements, your workforce should always be ready. Even when I worked in the NHS, we should be audit ready. If somebody just turns up and they're doing an audit, we should pass it, because we shouldn't just wait until we know that a CQC inspector is coming or an Ofsted inspector is coming.
Case,
Then performance management also is crucial, because if people are confident about what they're supposed to be doing, they feel that they're equipped to deliver the care that they're supposed to deliver, then it's a generally safer environment and happier environment as well. Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense. So how would you go about creating a training matrix? If you're a care manager or a director of a care company, or working in the compliance departments at maybe a bigger company, how would you go about creating one?
So 5 steps. Right?
5 steps.
Yeah. So the first step is to identify job roles. Who needs training?
Yep.
Yeah.
You've got to account for everyone.
Then you map the training courses that they need, right?
Yep.
And you define how often they do it. So if they do it as part of induction, when do they need to refresh it, right? So the intervals for refresher. Then you need to be able to track training completion, if they actually completed the training, right? Because you could assign people courses, then they don't do it for another 6 months. So that time they're actually non-compliant, the time that they haven't done it. So you need to be able to track that. Then review and update regularly. It's almost like your risk assessment tool in a way. Identify who needs the training, then map the training, and then define how often they need to do it, track their completion, and then review and update that regularly.
Yeah.
And also, if there's an incident or accident, it's a chance to review everything.
Review it, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly,
Make sure there's nothing missing. So what are the common pitfalls to avoid?
Yeah, the biggest one is, we did our training matrix 5 years ago. We've got it, so we tick a box. So not actually refreshing it, not actually going back to update it, right? Then another one is overcomplicating. You and I have seen complicated spreadsheets that is something. How do they even make sense of
tabs
this?
And
exactly.
Some of these obscure courses that
you want to simplify it, and then aligning the training with the jobs, because there's some courses where people. I remember one time, I think it was a recruitment agency, where everyone was having to do the care certificate including nurses and allied health professionals and doctors. And we had to stop them. It was a very successful company, actually, a national recruitment agency. And we had to ask them, why are they making people do the care certificate? So the fact that they didn't even understand what the care certificate was for, they were making people do unnecessary training, which is a cost, but also you're wasting people's time. I would be very annoyed if you asked me to do a course that added no value whatsoever to my job.
To my job, yeah. Well,
And I won't take it seriously. And then the risk is that they won't take anything seriously after that. They just do it to tick a box.
yeah, you lose that.
Yeah.
You get demotivation and so on and so forth. Yeah. Yeah, so some common pitfalls, and like I say, we deal with a lot of those sort of pitfalls all the time, really. So yeah, interesting. So practical implementation and compliance alignment. How do you go about that practical implementation?
The key really is whether you're using a manual system or electronic tools, to have a system that is easy to use.
Yeah,
To have a system that even when somebody comes in to audit your systems, like commissioners are coming to audit your systems or regulators, or part of your audit process, it's easy to audit what you're doing. There's a trail as well, because there's going to be a combination of in-house face-to-face training, external face-to-face training, e-learning, maybe from 3, 4, 5 different providers. That's where the challenge is now. That's why people end up with a folder somewhere where they're trying to track everything across different platforms.
yeah,
Okay, I'm at risk of plugging our own product here, but we saw that as a problem. The typical care company, small care company with no more than 30 people, for example, they'll be using 5, 6 different providers,
different systems. Yeah,
different systems. So what we did then was to build a tool, ComplyPlus, to say, look, it doesn't matter where all your training is coming from. It can be fed into this one dashboard. You can upload certificates. You can integrate. So we've got open APIs where people can just integrate with our system
and push
then
data.
push
between,
data between different systems. But you need one clean dashboard where everything is visible. Because most organizations, and you have had this experience, I know, for a few times, where one care home, for example, is desperately now trying to get everything together because CQC are coming or the local authority is coming to do an audit. And I think you shouldn't put things together just to prepare for an audit.
It's very
you should
reactive, isn't it?
always be ready for an audit. The moment people do the training, that information, even if it means it is fed manually, it needs to be fed manually so that it goes to that nice clean dashboard. You should be able to see a traffic light system. If everything is in red, it means that you are not compliant, right? So it needs to be done immediately,
Yeah,
right? So it's out of date or whatever the case, it needs to be done immediately.
Yeah.
If it's in amber, then it means it's at risk of running out. If you don't do anything about it,
yeah.
it's going to go into red.
It should be on your mind. At that
Everything
point,
should
yeah.
remain green. And why do I use those colors? Because even when you go to any clinical environment, the risk assessment tools are color coded. You don't want anything in red. You don't want anything in amber. It means you have to do it, right? So if I've done my training, for example, I was hired in February, right? And I did my resuscitation basic life support training on the 7th of February in 2024. So today, that's my last day being compliant.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Tomorrow, I'm non-compliant. So
You can't work. Yeah,
yeah, I should have already done the refresher beforehand. So you need to be able to plan. That's why it's important to have a visual presentation. And it's so much better now because if people are using TikTok and Instagram, Facebook, all these social media tools, why not incorporate some of those visuals into these systems, like what we have done, where we keep adding modules so that people can have a better view of what's happening in the business as far as compliance and training needs are concerned. Yeah.
So, do you have a case study of an example? And I know we do this quite a lot with certain organisations that are willing to sort of listen. Do you have a case study where we've used the TNA and the training matrix to maintain CQC compliance, and if not just maintain compliance, actually improve its outcome in terms of rating or service provision? Yeah.
Yeah. I have a lot of examples, but one of my you know who I'm talking about here. They became one of my favorite clients, actually. We went there to Cardiff one time to go and do statutory and mandatory training,
Yes.
right? So when we were trying to do a needs analysis with them before going there, they had no clue whatsoever what we were talking about. This company was coming from a manufacturing background, so they're quite well known from in manufacturing healthcare products for people with disabilities and things like that. But they were putting up a new team of allied health professionals, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, and other people that would then go and assess people in their own homes or in the NHS, in care homes, so that they can measure them for the products. So it was a new team that was quite different from their manufacturing business. But what they had was a clinical manager, a physiotherapist. We sat down and we actually went through everything that we've discussed, organizational needs. Let's separate this side of the business from the factory side of the business. You guys are clinicians, right? Then we did a needs analysis, we did a matrix, and up to now they use it. And even when we offered them the platform, the ComplyPlus platform 2 years ago, they were the first to sign up to it because it had worked so well for them. They went on to do very well as a business. They got contracts in England, contracts in Wales, and they're growing. And then for us, actually, we've grown with them as well. As their needs have changed, we just have to keep updating. But they know what they're doing, and they are in control, and they're always compliant because we built the system right from the base when they were starting the clinical work. And that's how it should be done. But obviously, many organizations come to us when they're putting out fires rather than come to us before the fires start.
Prepared, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, great. So, I think that concludes what we wanted to cover today. Yeah. We are going to carry on this thread. We'll look at the next stage now where we're looking at readiness to do these things and hopefully give you some hints and tips on that as well. But like I did say at the start of the episode, we will be giving you some free resources to use on ComplyPlus. So we can create you an account if you don't already have one. We've got the training needs analysis template and the training matrix templates available for you guys to download from ComplyPlus and start using. Obviously, there is some work from you guys. You can't just download it and start using it. Yeah. But the templates are there to give you that structure that maybe, that can always be the hardest bit, getting started.
Exactly.
But if you've got that template, hopefully that will give you a good starting point. And from our side, obviously, if you do have any questions on this topic, drop some feedback in the comment section. Or alternatively, come to our website. We've got loads of different types of contact forms, live chat. If you do want to speak to us about this or how we can help, feel free to do so. I look forward to the next episode. But before we leave you, we'll just give you some key takeaways from today. So, Richard, if you want to go through the 3 key takeaways from today's episode, what would they be?
Yeah. So, if you execute the training needs analysis very well, you're going to be compliant, you're going to save time, you're going to save money and effort.
That's a thumbs up.
Avoid problems, yeah? Yep. The second one, training matrix, it gives you a structured way to track and maintain your compliance. So once you've established what you need to do, the intervals and all that, you then fill in the training matrix, then it's a nice visual way to manage your compliance. And most importantly, you need to align your workforce development plan with the business goals. They go hand in hand. And which is why we're giving these training needs analysis and training matrix templates. But in addition also, we give them guidance on how to use them. So that's why, when they log in, they can download the materials. But before they download the materials, they can actually go through step by step how to do it so that they can then go and fill it in. But again, we're happy to answer questions if people have any questions at all. These are free resources that we're giving because for us, it makes our work easier when we deal with people that have an understanding of this. Because that's where sometimes, even when we go and deliver training, you don't know what their goals are. You don't know whether they've done a needs analysis or not. And within the first 10, 15 minutes, you realize straight away what's missing. And it'll be nice to go in there when they've already done most of this groundwork. You can deliver more effective training that is suited to the organization.
Yeah. Okay, great. So, we'll see you guys on next week's episode. And thank you for listening as always.
Fantastic. Have a good week.